Hello everyone, Thomas Fleming here again. Well, we're getting a lot of new members, so I'm going to do a review for all of us. Most of you should know most of this, but a lot of this is to cover for the new members. I'm getting some strange comments and strange beliefs, so let's just do a review to make sure we're on the same page. As I tell people, a lot of times we have differences on interpretation of what's coming. So I stress, as long as we agree on the gospel, then the rest of it's sort of academic. And when we look at the book of Revelation, the majority of stuff on there is not for us. We can get some information out of the letters to the churches. We can get some information of the things leading up to the tribulation time frame. But we don't really know anything coming after that. We can't really find a date. But the reason we don't know is Satan's not supposed to know either. So we're going to look at Matthew 24. Everybody should be familiar with this. The Olivet Discourse, where he's talking to his disciples. So let's go ahead and jump over there. 24 verse 1. We don't need to start this early, but just I like to have context. It's always important to know what the people of the time thought. So they're being talked to by people back then, so we need to know what they thought was going on. 24, then Jesus went out and departed from the temple. He's there doing his normal thing, teaching on the Sabbath. And his disciples came up to him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said, "Do you not see all these things? Assuredly, I say to you, not one stone will be left on another that shall not be thrown down." This is before they destroyed the temple in 70 AD, and yet he knew about it. So we're going to also find that a lot of the stuff that he's talking about is not talking about things of that time, it's talking about things to come. Okay, in verse 3, now as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, "Tell us, when will these things be, and what will be a sign of your coming and the end of the age?" I can just see them coming up to him and going, "Look, you can't tell all these other people, but you can tell us." Well, if he tells them, we'd know because we have an account of what they talked about. So he's going to tell them. And he said, and Jesus answered them and said, "Take heed that no one deceives you." It's interesting that that's the first comment about the end times. No one deceives you. My God, the media and everybody else out there are being so deceptive. Now, people throughout the ages for 2,000 years have been looking for this time that we're in now. And they've talked about it. People have predicted the future. The media's glommed onto somebody that predicts the doom and gloom of all this stuff, and they love that, so they grab onto him even though he's been wrong over and over again. Well, Jesus is saying, take heed, let no one deceive you. So don't let this person deceive you. But they like deception, so they're going to talk to him. "For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ." Well, many have come in his name, and they've been wrong, but we're really looking for one. He's known as the Antichrist. And we may see him and recognize him as the Antichrist just before we leave. But he won't be around to do his dirty work while we're here. We can't be here. We're the restraining force that's preventing him from doing his dirty deeds. So, someone saying, "I am the Christ and will deceive many, and you will hear of wars and rumors of wars." Well, we've seen lots of them recently. We've had 2 world wars with maybe a third one on the way. We've had Korea, we've had Vietnam, we've had the Gulf Wars. All these things are going on. We've got our current war with Ukraine going on in Russia, which we're trying to dig ourselves into, which from a human point of view, there's no reason for it, but we're not talking human at this point. We're talking Satan. Okay, See that you are not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. That's why we're told about these things, so that we're not troubled. Jesus is saying, don't be bothered by these things. They're coming, don't worry about them. So don't, anybody, if I talk about these things, I'm not being negative. I'm telling you this because Jesus told us this, and then not to worry about it. But the end is not yet, for nation will rise up against nation, ethnos versus ethnos, or ethnic origins. These people are all related over there, and they're fighting amongst themselves. Kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in various places. All these things are the beginning of sorrows. And we're going to see in Revelation that there's 3 sorrows, basically. But we only have to put up with this part of it, the labor pains. We know about that in Revelation 12. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. In World War II, they killed 6 million Jews. But not just them. They killed another 6 million other groups that they didn't like either, for a total of 12 million were killed by the Germans. Not the war itself, that's other people, but just the people that they put to death specifically. The Antichrist at that time, the little a Antichrist, Hitler, put these people down. Satan doesn't know when the time is. So I think every generation has a potential Antichrist in it. And our current Antichrist is out there somewhere. Hitler was doing his job. He didn't start when he was 2 years old. He was doing his job, staying below the radar until it was time for him to step up and be the little Antichrist. And Satan was hoping he'd be the big Antichrist, but he wasn't. So he's going to keep trying. Every generation we're going to see something. And then many will be offended. God, you can't say anything. That's why I'm looking to move over to other platforms. I'll stay dual as long as I can, but I may have to move completely. Yeah, I'm in the plane path. We've got a storm front coming in, and I'm trying to get this video recorded before the storm gets here. But that means that the flight path is coming towards me. Okay. Many will betray one another and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many, because lawlessness will abound. Now, we could look back through time and find a lot of this stuff, but it's everything that you combine together has never happened before in history. This part has, but you combined the fact that Israel exists and all the other things that we can put together. We are in the end times. Before 1948, there was no point in even discussing the end times, because they have to have the abomination in the temple in Israel, in Jerusalem. They didn't even have control of Jerusalem until 67. Okay. And the love of many will grow cold because of the lawlessness. We're seeing that everywhere, lawlessness. He who endures till the end will be saved. Hang on through this. This is going to get rough. Now, we're not going to go through the tribulation rough part. In fact, the first part doesn't even really have tribulation associated with it. They've just taken the 7-year period and say it's all tribulation, but it's only the second part where it's referenced the Great Tribulation. Nothing else references tribulation. We've just associated it with it. So when I talk about tribulation, I'm really talking about the second half, and we won't be here. Okay. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. Jesus, in answering this, is not talking about the rapture. He's Jewish, and he's talking to his Jewish disciples who want to know when he's going to come back as the Lion of Judah and conquer Rome. That's what they wanted. They wanted to be free. Well, that wasn't going to happen, but he wasn't going to really tell them that. And he was pointing way into the future. Israel is free now. their own nation, but they weren't back then. And they were destroyed by the country of the prince that is to come. The Roman Empire destroyed them. The prince that is to come has a tie to the Roman Empire. That's not a whole lot of help because they covered pretty much all the area from England all around, every place, over to the Middle East. I mean, they didn't go north. They stopped before they went north. And the reason they stopped before they went north is that warring group that was up there called the Scythians, which is basically where Magog is. They were a warring nation. They couldn't go up there and take on them. They're so warring up there that that's the reason that they built the Great Wall. China built the wall to keep them out. That's how warring they were. And so when they come down, this people is well known to the world over there. It's probably Russia, but it's going to include all the other countries. That's coming. Okay. Let's look at 24:15. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, that's talked about in Daniel 9. That's where he's referencing. Spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place. The holy place there was used, that phrase was used 54 times in the Old Testament. He's talking to Jews about the Old Testament. They don't have the New Testament yet. Every one of those 54 times was talking about the holy part of the temple. So that's what they've got to build. They've got to build the holy part of the temple by the middle point. 3.5 years into the 70th week is when they're going to defile the temple, the Antichrist is. So they've got to have time to build the temple. They need to get going. We got to get our 2 witnesses in here. They may already be out there doing some stuff that we just don't see, like the Antichrist is out there and we don't see him. These people were born on earth, grew up, and now are becoming ready to become what they're going to be. The Antichrist was born on earth, is growing up, and is not quite ready to be what he's going to be. But they're out there. They have to be prepared. Jesus was born on earth, grew up, and did his thing. John the Baptist, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they're all born on earth, grow up, and then become what they're going to be. He's preparing everything, and we're in that stage of preparation. We don't have a lot of time left. You can't predict a date, so don't go trying to do that. We have high watch times, but the rapture, not discussed by Jesus. He's not going to discuss a Jewish event with his Jewish disciples. So he's not talking about the rapture. You got to go to Paul if you want to find the rapture. Now, the only time you're going to get a rapture discussed in a Jewish content is by John in Revelation 12. And the word there is harpazo, which is rapture. Okay, getting back to Matthew. Let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let he who is in the housetops not go down and take anything out of the house. And let he who is in the field not go back and get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant and nursing babies in those days. And pray that your flight is not in the winter or the Sabbath. They're going to be attacked. Israel is going to be attacked. It's going to be a major, major attack. And it's going to cause some major destruction in the area. That's where Satan is going to use his people to try to destroy Israel again. He always fails. But he's going to try again. But God's going to protect him. He's already got a place prepared for him to get him out of there. There will be a remnant survive. Go to Revelation 12. Okay. And then at that point in time, if anyone says, look, here is Christ, don't go out there. For false Christs and false prophets will arise. We're going to have the Antichrist. And they're going to look for anybody. The world knows about Christ. They may deny him, but they know about him. The Muslims know who Jesus Christ is. He's in the Quran. They're looking for him to come back as their leader. So when the Antichrist steps up, he's going to be embraced by the world, who aren't going to know the gospel and aren't going to know the Bible enough to recognize him. They're going to believe him. They're going to believe that he really is Christ. He's going to claim to be the Christ with his abomination and defile the temple. That's when the Jews are going to recognize that he is a false prophet. I got to quit hitting my table. Get too excited here. All this is coming. I had somebody tell me we're in the tribulation. No, we're not. The tribulation time frame, which again I'm going to use only because the world does, is the start of the 70th week. The church age is over and we're starting back onto the Jewish countdown. 69th week ended at Jesus. And we're in the church age, as they call it. We're in the Gentile age. Paul covers this time frame. Jesus doesn't. When it goes back to the 70th week, that's when you can go back and start looking at Jewish events and start looking at lineup. I love Barry in his teaching and his workup and all the timeline lineup. We're in a separate breakout. This is the Gentile age. You can't line it up with Jewish holidays. Now, as it ends and it switches over, it can line up. And it might be coincidental. It might be right up to it. A good high watch time frame will be Easter and Passover. They happen at the same, Passover is longer than Easter. It's a week long, with Easter being a couple days, so we're looking at it in the middle. That might be a good high watch time frame coming up. We have our world leaders having some major things happening sometime between now and that time frame, getting set up for it. So there are going to be some major changes between now and April. Major changes. I've got people telling me to get your money out of the banks. Put it, they've got their places that they want them, but they're saying something major is going to happen at the end of January, first part of February, which is right around the corner. So be ready. They just had their big annual meeting with all the business leaders. Things are getting ready to happen. Don't be afraid. We're not out of here yet. But the world is going to start its next phase. And we're not going to like it, but it's the part of the world falling apart that we've got to watch and help. There's going to be people that are going to be panicking and afraid. Jesus told us not to be afraid. These things are coming. So we got to stay firm, faithful, and get the word out when these people start panicking. Because there's not going to be any place for them to turn. And immediately after the tribulation, I'm in 29, the second coming is coming, okay? We know that that's coming, but that's what Jesus is talking about. He's not talking about the rapture. That's after the tribulation. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. This is right out of Revelation. I didn't prepare this, but I'm going to turn over to it. Revelation 6:12, I believe, is the seal. I'm in Revelation 6:12. I looked, and when he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood, and the stars of heaven fell to the earth, as a fig tree drops its late figs when it is shaken. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I ran out of memory on my phone, and it just stopped recording, but I can continue on. So we're reading out of Revelation chapter 6, and I'm down to verse, I can start at 13 and recap. And the stars of the heaven fell to the earth as a fig tree drops its late figs when it's shaken by a mighty wind. Then the sky receded as a scroll when it was rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. This is a big event, so it's going to happen. But that's covered by Matthew. When Jesus is talking, he's talking about that. But he's talking about the end. In 29, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light. Stars fell from the heaven, the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn as they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds, and they're going to realize that they've been wrong all this time. That's going to be dramatic, but that's at the end. Before that happens, we've got to have all the stuff during the tribulation. That's the sixth seal at that point. You've got to have the other five. The first one's the Antichrist. You've got to see him and know he's the Antichrist. Well, if we were here as Christians, we would know. I don't know if we're going to see him and recognize him and then go up immediately, where we can't do anything about it, or where they're going to be here just a second. I don't know. But basically, as soon as we can see him on the earth, that's the beginning of the tribulation time frame. So until you can see the Antichrist for sure and know who he is, you don't go into the tribulation. And again, I don't think that we're going to see the Magog War. At one time I thought we were, but I don't think we were, because I don't think that there's going to be enough time for them to be destroyed, as bad as they will be, flee, and yet have their time of peace to build the temple. I think in order for them to build the temple, they have to have peace up front. We have our people come along cleaning up. I'm so glad they're using electric blowers instead of those gas-powered ones. When the gas-powered ones start going, you can't carry on a conversation. So at least they're blowing the leaves off the path and stuff, cleaning up the old camps. Like I said, we were full this weekend. Well, this is Sunday and they're all leaving. They've all left or leaving. They're packing. So anyhow, we know that things are coming, but we haven't started yet. Don't get confused. The tribulation won't start until we're out of here. Now, we may go at the same time it starts. There may be some gaps. We don't have anything really to build on as far as the timing. God doesn't want us to know because he doesn't want Satan to know. Look at the Revelation 12 recording of that. Why are we being raptured? We're being raptured to get us out of harm's way. Who's going to harm us? Satan. So if we know, Satan will know. Satan knows this Bible better than we do. So we need to make sure that we stay in this and keep working up to the last minute. Don't give up. Don't be afraid. Keep the message going. We're in exciting times. We've never, ever before been in a time where we can see the Bible start to take shape, to see prophecy take shape. We've seen, teachings take shape, and we've seen where people talk about, you got to do this to be able to do that, but we've never been in a time of prophecy taking place. So we got to be ready and make sure the world is ready. Yeah, they've got their cleaning crew out here. They've got one of the yurts. If you don't want to camp the way I do in a tent, you can rent yurts, or you can rent Adirondacks. So basically, this is like a tent, and there's heaters in there, and there's power and everything. You can just bring your sleeping bags or sleeping materials, and you can go inside and camp. You don't have to have a tent, and there's no setup involved. You show up. If you want to have a fire, you order wood, and you have it delivered to your campsite. Get out and enjoy this world that God created for us. Enjoy it while it's here. At the end of all this stuff, this is going to be destroyed. I don't know what the new world's going to be like. He's going to give us a new heaven and new earth and a new Jerusalem. That's when the party starts. The wedding feast will not start until all this is over. And we'll be in the New Jerusalem. Go to Revelation 21. It will be a time to celebrate. But we're not in that time yet. We can look forward and have some happy thoughts of the things that are coming. And Jesus will wipe away all tears, because there's going to be some bad stuff coming. We're going to be watching. I don't know how we're going to be able to be a part of this, but we won't be down here. So that's the thing that you can be assured of. But we're not quite there yet. We're close. We know that the tribulation time frame is imminent because we know the rapture is imminent because we can see the sign of the times. The harlot is going to have to be, at some point, killing Christians. We're not to that point yet. Although some lady was just killed because she wouldn't wear a mask. That's how bad the world was getting. Didn't wear a mask, refused to wear a mask, and they killed her. No respect for human life. Satan is the best at that. So if they can do it for that, for not wearing a mask, they can do it for Christianity too. Satan hates Christianity. He hates Jews first, then Christianity, because we're adopted Jews. And then he just hates people in general and will do anything he can to kill them off. We're going to lose a quarter of the people of the world during the seals. And then another third of what's left during the trumpets. A lot of death. Billions of people will die, which is what this world order wants. They're going to be the ones responsible. It's human responsibility, not God. God's not getting involved until after the abomination. That would be the Great Tribulation. So make sure you assign the appropriate blame if you need to assign blame to anybody. Satan's ultimately responsible for all misery. All good and proper things come from above. So that makes the opposite true as well. All bad things come from below or from Satan. Don't assign bad things to God. If we're suffering, people have chosen that path. God is not sending the world to hell. Satan has taken everybody to hell because that's where he wants to go. Or at least he wants to take the people there. God provided a way out, and it's free. He didn't even charge for it. He provided a way out, so we don't all have to go to hell. We go to heaven. It's a real simple process. So then they say, well, God's making everybody go to hell. No, he's not. He provided a way out. If we're going to hell, they're going there by choice. So we've got to give them the proper choice. That's why the whole world has to hear the gospel. So they have a choice. Don't be afraid. It's about to get real, as they say. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless. Well, this is my new replacement tent, replacing my old one that looked just like it. I went in and complained, and I got a replacement tent, so that's okay. This is my campsite now with everybody gone. We're supposed to get rain. It keeps getting delayed, but it's coming. So everybody went ahead and packed up early. But this is what the campsite looks like, empty. There's literally nobody here. There's a camp host up there, and the other campsites are all empty. There's only 5 of them. I'm in campsite. Yeah, I'm in one of them. I got to be careful about talking where I'm at. Anyhow, this is the campsite. Those are yurts, as they're called. They're basically a tent. They have electricity, they have power. You can rent those. They're more expensive than my tent site because they're all set up. But you can just show up for the weekend like you would at a motel. And they're cheaper than a motel. I think these are like $80 a night or something like that. Where I spend, I think for this site here, it's about $30 a night. One of my campsites, I can get it down to 18 with my discount. So it just depends on where you want to be. Here I am. I'm the only car in here. They don't really use it much anymore, but that's where you would let people know where you're at. But they've only got, as you can see, 5 walk-in sites. You can keep track of those in your head. They don't have to have paperwork. But it's real calm. Calm before the storm, as they say. They got, I don't know if you can see these, but they have plastic domes over the top of these, so you can look up and see the sky. That one looks like it's open. You can raise them and lower them if it gets too hot in there. You got kids, they got play areas. In this area over here, got a pavilion area you can either rent or just use if nobody's using it. They've got tables and barbecues if you want to use them. Somebody ordered like 5 bundles of firewood over there and only used 1 and left the other 4 behind. They just pick it right back up and resell it. It's great for them. You get a pavilion like this, there's power and lights. I think there's power over on that one there. I see plugs, and you got lights. You can light up this whole area. So get out and enjoy this. The cost is minimal. If you get a yurt like this, or some of the places have Adirondacks, which are wooden versions of these. They cost a little more than my camping, but if you're only going to go out for the weekend, you can afford it. Do it while you still can, because pretty soon we're not going to be able to afford this. They've all got comfort stations, as they're called. They got bathrooms and showers in this one. Some of the other state parks have laundry service in them as well. I can see squirrels. That's all I see in the daytime. Sometimes you see more, depends on the park. Get out and enjoy. Looking back. Take the family out. Enjoy it. You can do this for the day. You don't even have to stay overnight. Well, I think in this particular one you have to stay overnight, but because this is a limited size. But a lot of them just have public areas that you can drive right into. Check with your local parks. They're all over the place. In Georgia, there's a whole bunch of them, but every state has a state park. Other states have federal parks. You can check those out as well. Okay. Keep telling you, enjoy it while you can. God bless.